Hey everyone, welcome to Marketing 350 Principles of Marketing. This is a little conversation about Chapter 1, introducing the subject of marketing, thinking about what marketing is. It's a lot of definitions, looking at a really broad view of what the rest of the class is going to entail. So let's jump into it. Okay. So in Chapter 1, we are going to focus on two key things. We're going to focus on what marketing is, and sort of some we're going to talk about what marketing is, some subcategories and things that are important that roll up into the broader concept of marketing, and what value we can find in marketing itself. We are also going to look at value from a variety of different perspectives, from the perspective of a consumer, from the perspective of a company, and also from the perspective of just society as a whole. Okay, so what is marketing? If you are here, then you have already thought about this question and hopefully provided an answer in the activity that was assigned before this little lecture. And so what is marketing? So think back to what you wrote or what you thought about when you thought about marketing. Common answers I get are things like advertising, social media, something to do with customers sometimes, selling, sales, persuading people. Those are the most common answers that I get for the question, what is marketing? So marketing is officially by the American Marketing Association defined as this: the activity or set of institutions and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. Ugh. I don't know about you, but that is a mouthful to me. I think it is much simpler than that. And instead of trying to cram a whole bunch of terms into a definition, I think we can look at it in a really simple yet complete way. I like to define marketing in this way. Marketing is about satisfying customer needs in a profitable manner. That's what we're here to do as marketers. We are here to understand our customers and then satisfy their needs. And that is going to incorporate a lot of things like creating the right product that has the right features, persuading them to try our brand or to try our new product, the packaging, the advertising, making sure that it's in the right stores, making sure that the advertisements are on the right channels or on the right websites, figuring out what the right price is, a high enough price that we're going to make money as a company, and a low enough price that consumers will actually purchase it. If we aren't going to be able to make money to pay our workers, to invest back into the company, then it's not going to be a valuable enough activity for us, pursuit for us as a company. So you do have to have value on both sides here. But I think that this definition is a much simpler way to incorporate all of the things that the more official definition incorporates. So when we think about marketing, one of the things that you will probably remember from this class is the 4 Ps. So if I ask my husband to tell me what he knows about marketing, this is usually what he tells me. This is the one thing that he remembers forever. And I think that it's probably the most common thing that people remember, especially those of you who are not marketing majors. So if we think about marketing, we can sort of distill it down to 4, maybe 5 categories, 5 things that are interconnected. I like this puzzle piece illustration in particular because these things work together. They are not silos or boxes off by themselves. They really do have to fit together in a puzzle in order to make the product, the pursuit successful. So they are product, pretty self-explanatory. We will spend several chapters on product, branding, product development, that kind of thing. place, we also call this distribution, but we needed a P for it to fit in the 4 Ps. So we call it place, but this is the figuring out the logistics of the supply chain, figuring out the right place to put the product so that our target consumers will be able to access it and purchase it. Then we have pricing strategies. So the third P is price. That is exactly what it sounds like, making sure that we have the right price for that product at that time. And then promotion strategies. This is basically you would think of as advertising, but includes a lot more things: advertising, public relations, like direct marketing, which is like spam or junk mail that you get in the mail. This can include the promotions that you run in terms of what sales are you going to have? Are you going to have a rebate? Are you going to have a contest? What kinds of things are you doing there? So that is encompassing of a lot of things as well. We will cover all 4 of these throughout this semester. We will spend at least 1 chapter on each of these. Some of them will spend more than 1 chapter on. And then what I like to call the 5th P is really more of an overarching P. So imagine it sort of as an arch over the top of these, and that's people. People is maybe the most important P of all. If you don't know the people one, then you cannot figure out the other 4 in a way that will fit together and make sense. And people is just the idea of knowing who is your target market. What group of people are you thinking that this product is a good fit for? We are going to look at a variety of different ways to understand our customers and to figure out who that group is, and then to make sure that all of these other 4 Ps match up with what that group needs. Okay, so most companies are not this one size fits all. We're going to produce a product and we mean it to be for everyone. It doesn't mean that everyone can't buy it. Of course, everyone could buy it. Anyone could buy it, usually at least. But when we are going to try to make good choices with our resources, it's really important that we are figuring out who is the most likely candidate for this product, right? And so those are our 4 Ps. We're going to spend a lot of time on this throughout the semester and on our 5th P of people. Okay. So again, this sort of gets into each of those 4 Ps just really, really briefly. The main point I want to make here is that when we think of product, we're not always talking about something that you can physically hold in your hands. We are also talking about intangible things, services, insurance, haircuts, nonprofits, and then also things like ideas, places, and people. And we'll talk more about that as we get further into it. What is a market? A market is going to, so I wanted to distinguish between market and marketplace here. So as we go forward in the semester, when I say market, you're not thinking of the farmer's market or a place that is a market. When in this course, when we talk about market, we're talking about people, a group of people. So our target market, the customers or consumers that share the same need that our product is going to fill. Marketplace, in distinction, is an actual place that you would go to purchase a product. So what does marketing do? We've talked about some of the major components of marketing, but what does it do? Marketing facilitates exchange in order to get the things that you need, right? You needed to buy a textbook for this class. Maybe you bought a laptop for college. Maybe you just wanted to buy a soda at the convenience store or some new shoes for the first day of class. Marketing facilitates that exchange. It is through marketing that we have developed a product, some shoes that are cute or comfortable or whatever it is that you're looking for, or we have, figured out at Quick Trip that we want to have certain sizes of drinks and how much they're going to be so that it creates a value for the customer. You know where you can purchase it, you know how much it's going to be. Maybe there's a promotion or at least there's some in-store advertising, but marketing is facilitating that exchange so that you can walk into the Quick Trip and buy your Diet Dr. Pepper to get you through the rest of the day. Okay, it creates utility. We're going to talk a lot about this in the future, but this is things like having the soda that you want in a place that is convenient for you on your way to where you're going. All right, Quick Trip is very particular, and especially all chain gas stations are very particular about their locations for this very reason, because they want to create utility for the customer. Okay, and so then we're delivering value. Marketing helps us deliver value for the customer by having that product, developing the product, having it in the right place at the right time, at the right price for that consumer. Of course, it creates value for the firm, or it should create value for the firm. And then hopefully it creates value for society. At a minimum, marketing helps us have more information and helps us be better informed consumers than without. We're going to talk more about utility in the future, but when we talk about utility, we are talking about there are kind of these subcategories of utility I'm going to touch on just briefly. Form utility is the idea that companies take raw materials and turn them into something that we as consumers want, right? If we went and dug an oil well, we could not pump that oil into our cars, or our cars wouldn't run. And so the companies have to invest significant sums, right, to create the technology and then to actually get the oil out of the ground, send it to the refinery, have it processed into the things that are valuable for us. Maybe it's gas, maybe it's jet fuel, maybe it is lycra or polyester that goes into your cute clothes or shoes that you bought for the first day of class. Okay, place utility is what I was talking about with Quick Trip, right? Instead of having to drive to the Diet Dr. Pepper plant to pick up a pallet of Dr. Pepper, I can drive to Quick Trip on my way to the George and get a Diet Dr. Pepper. Time utility is similar, that you would have those products available when you need them. And then possession utility, I think, is an interesting one. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later. But this is the idea that instead of having to buy an entire pallet of toilet paper, which I don't have room to store, right? Walmart or the retailer, in conjunction with the manufacturer, stores smaller packages of toilet paper until I am ready to go purchase it in a size that is convenient for me. So there's you can go a little bit more in depth. I would really encourage you to read the short part in the book about this, because it is really interesting to think about how companies and marketing specifically provide these different utilities to customers. Okay. All right. So let's talk about value from the customer perspective beyond just providing utility. Okay. Value is really that ratio of perceived benefits to perceived costs. So this is going to be anything from actual costs like price to things like how far do I have to drive to purchase the product. Okay. The value proposition, what we are trying to communicate to the consumer, is going to be the whole bundle of benefits, not just the product itself. So perhaps that is that we offer free delivery with a purchase of a new washer and dryer from Home Depot. Maybe it's not even that. Maybe we buy a new coat for the fall, and the utility is that it keeps us warm, but we also have the benefit that it looks attractive, or it's a stylish brand that we think people will approve of. There may be other intangible benefits other than just the coat keeps us warm. Okay. From the seller's perspective, right, this is going to take a variety of forms as well. So one of the things that marketers like to try to understand, that has become a little bit easier to understand with all of the databases and tracking that we're able to do of customers now, is to figure out what is the economic value of a single customer. And the really critical point here is that we have found that it's far more costly to acquire a new customer, to get a new customer to walk in and buy that product or that brand for the first time, than it is to keep a customer. Okay, so once we acquire those customers, it is really important that we go ahead and invest a little bit to retain those customers, because in the long term, that's a really good strategy for us. It doesn't mean we don't want to acquire new customers as well, but it's important that we maintain the customers and keep the customers that we already have. And another way we can look at value from a marketer or firm perspective is this idea of co-creation. And so this is basically partnering with consumers to help create value. I'll give you some examples in a little bit. Another thing that's important for value from a firm perspective is this idea of competitive advantage and distinctive competency. So things that the firm is really good at, and generally that distinctive competency is going to be something that it's going to be hard for competitors to imitate. So you can see a few examples here. Having the distinctive competency of the lower price point that Southwest has gives them this benefit of appealing to budget conscious consumers. And the result of that is that their competitive advantage is that they're longstanding the #1 domestic carrier in America. Right? They're wildly more successful than a lot of the other airlines for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons that they were able to have a low price point, at least up until I think early 2000s, was that they had actually negotiated fuel prices and like bought fuel in advance or negotiated those prices in advance at a much lower rate. And so they were less subject to fluctuations in oil prices than other competitors. But what that has, so that's a very hard thing to imitate as a competitor. Can't go backwards and negotiate those contracts. Maybe you can do it in going forward. But Southwest already has that position in the consumer's minds as being the budget-friendly airline. Okay. All right, so then consumer generated value, this kind of gets us into that idea of co-creation, where it's not just that people are buying the things and the firm is creating value for them, but that people and consumers are actually creating value themselves. The biggest driver of this is absolutely social networking. Okay, social media absolutely is the driver of this. Think about your influencers who are generating value. Think about just you got a new cool pair of shoes and from Nike, and so you tag Nike in your Instagram picture. That is creating value for Nike, right? When you post that picture and tag them. So just a couple of examples very quickly. So you can see here just a sort of like circular idea of social media and integrating this idea of co-creation and consumer generated media and content. So you would say on your website, you would say, okay, if you buy a product, use our hashtag when you post it on social media. So you go and you post it on social media, okay, and then they can see all of the posts that have tagged them with that hashtag, right? And then they can go and publish your advertising piece that basically you just made an ad for them, and they can go repost it. You're excited because your photo got reposted. They're excited because they get free advertising. They didn't have to pay a photographer to go do a photo shoot for that. They're able to basically collaborate indirectly with consumers. Couple of other examples. So this is actually an example. These Coca-Cola bottles that you may have seen, that they actually did end up using this idea, but it originally was just this user-generated content that someone had created. Then we have Lay's that has done this campaigns for several years, where they solicit ideas from consumers, and they pick the top 3 and they actually make them, produce them, and then you can buy them and you can try them and then vote on your favorite. These three don't sound too bad. One year, one of the ones was cappuccino. And my niece just like really wanted these cappuccino ones. And so I bought a bag and I think she ate 3 of them and we threw the rest away. They were so terrible. But sometimes they are great ideas that end up being successful. So then they, at least for a short time, continue to produce whatever the winner is of the contest. But this is integrating, incorporating customers, getting customers' ideas, and utilizing it in their marketing. Folgers did something similar where they did a contest for their jingle. Pepsi also did something similar where they're actually looking for lots of different ideas. So almost like a GoFundMe, but trying to vote on ideas for Pepsi to support. Again, user-generated content and integrating consumers into the actual marketing of the product. Why? Why do we care? Why do consumers care? The reason is that consumers trust people more than they trust brands. They trust content that comes from their friends or their family, or even just, it could be an influencer, but it's someone that you trust more than the company itself. Okay. 50% of consumers find that user-generated content is more memorable than brand-produced content, which I think is fascinating, right? That consumers are just generally more creative, perhaps, than hiring someone to be creative. And then 53% of millennials have said user-generated content has influenced their purchasing decisions. How many of you have purchased something because an influencer on social media recommended the product? I know I have, right? So that's why we care about user-generated content. That's why it continues to grow and expand. Collaborative consumption is this idea that consumers are growing in this idea that they would rather rent than purchase products. This would be things like, kind of even started with like renting, probably like renting textbooks in college. But now you don't just rent them from the bookstore, you rent them from Amazon, you rent them from all kinds of other places, or you just buy a used one. Airbnb is a good example. You're renting and someone, it's not even, you're not even interacting with a company necessarily, you're just interacting between consumers. Uber, Lyft, Rent the Runway, tons of examples here. From society's perspective, there are kind of 2 sides to this. On one side, marketing is really good at things like PSAs and getting information out to people in a positive way. That could be like official government PSAs. That's also just companies. Things like, you know, in 2012, Target made these goals to make sure that all their seafood sold would be sustainable and traceable. They have the reusable bag program where if you take your own bag, you're supposed to get a nickel back. That saves consumers money, but it also saves them money because they don't have to produce the bags as much. And it also helps the planet because there's not as many plastic bags in the trash, right? All of that is good for society. All of that is part of marketing. I also mentioned before that marketing helps consumers because we can be more informed. We have more variety. We have access to more products through marketing. But certainly there are criticisms of marketing. Things like, you know, marketing makes people purchase things that they don't need. Certainly we have the agency to purchase things or not. Certainly people have the ability to decide whether they're going to purchase something, but sure, marketing may make you aware of a want or a need that you didn't know you had. Another one would be things like marketing of like what they call the dark side of marketing, or sin products or sin taxed products. Things like marketing alcohol, is that ethical? You know, in the past, especially, you can look at the marketing of cigarettes as a good example of this. Is that an ethical thing to do? You know, in that way, is marketing still valuable? So here's an interesting question to leave you with, just to think about. Your phone is probably next to you right now. If it's not in your hand, I wouldn't be surprised if at least 70% of you have your phone in your hand right now while you're watching this, or you're even watching this video on your phone. What we know is that, especially for teenagers, smartphones can be really bad for you, them teenagers specifically, but also people in a variety of different ways. Smartphones are great. They give us a lot of value. They serve a wide variety of purposes that can be helpful and important. But there is certainly an addictive quality with phones, or at least social media. Most people sleep with their phones right next to their heads. There's a lot of, there are studies about just like hearing the phone beep or vibrate, that some text message came in, or something came in, you got a notification, and people, if they don't, you check it right away. And when people don't check it right away, but they heard it, there's like an automatic increase in like anxiety or anxiousness, anticipation, because you feel like you really need to go check it right then. So all of that to say, do you think that it would be in the best interest of companies, consumers, and society, all three, to either try to increase the amount of time spent on your phone or decrease the amount of time spent on your phone? So I'll leave you with that question to ponder until we come back next time.